This is Home Games. Welcome to the show. My name is Scott Radley. I'm with the Hamilton Spectator and 900 CHML Radio. Below me, Bubba O'Neill from CHCH TV Sports. Beside him, Rick Zamperin from 900 CHML Radio. And on the top row, filling out the square, Steve Milton from the Hamilton Spectator, sports columnist. And guys, we have talked in a few of these shows recently about the CFL and about whether there'll be a season and what the plans are and the possibilities and everything else. Well, Randy Ambrosie, commissioner of the league, talked to the Canadian press this week. Here's what he had to say. I'm going to read it. It says that he is committed to having a season in 2021, but not entirely sure how that's going to look yet. Said this: we've got a schedule in place and we're committed to it. Our real focus is on all the planning that's going to go into executing against that and having maximum adaptability, because there's no doubt we're going to have to make adjustments in our plan. Bubba, we have speculated about the CFL season. We now have the commissioner saying, as I interpret it, there will be a season. Are you buying it?
Thanks for the update, Randy. Like, what is this? What's this all about? Like, I mean, he hadn't really say anything, in my opinion. He's been saying the same thing time and time again. And, you know, I've been the proponent the whole way through in this thing that I want the commissioner to speak. So really, I shouldn't be on him for this. But to me, this offers nothing, right? You look at the world of what's going on right now. Where are you going to play? Is it going to be a bubble concept? Which to me, I don't know how you do that. Again, with international travel, we've now seen another team, the Toronto Blue Jays, basically say we can't play here because their season starts in about a month and they got to play in Dunedin and probably shift to Buffalo when the weather gets better. I see no forecast at this time where this league can play or how they can play, right? And as now we're starting to get players beacon off a little bit. And I know it was kind of, hey, Brandon Banks at times kind of says some things. I know he does, but again, you know, you've got other people in the league saying, you know what, Rico Murray, great example, right? A guy that just recently retired, the defensive back, saying, you know what, because of the uncertainty and there are other things that are more important in my life right now, I'm moving on. But you're going to lose players right now because there's a certain amount of uncertainty. And how can you miss 2 seasons? Maybe, you know what, if you're a major in something else in your life, you got to go on. So I think that as this uncertainty continues, I think that there's a trend that could go on in the loss of players, as far as I see it.
Rick, are you buying what the commissioner is selling?
I want to buy it. It's on sale right now. It's deeply discounted. I'm not sure if I want to, spend that money right now because there's still some time right now. I know he has to, give fans an update and sponsors and players and coaches, obviously, and that's important to do. But at the end of the day, he didn't really say anything new. He said before that they are committed to playing a season. They will play a season. They're, focused on their schedule. And those are all the right things to say. And I think he has to say all those things. But nothing's changed. The funding model is still the same. The pandemic is still here. The travel restrictions I'm not too concerned about because they can quarantine for a couple of weeks. So, bring all the players from the States into Canada. You have your 2-week quarantine period and you launch into training camp, and that's great. But the financials, the crisis in terms of the virus, the expense on testing, is it going to be a bubble model? If it is, there's more cost. It's really looking like there's a lot more red flags on the field than there are for sale signs in terms of, buying what he's selling.
Well, the natural way that the CFL is and what a pandemic does, of course, is always going to make it exactly as both of you have said. It won't be a bubble, I'm pretty sure. I buy it a little more only in this sense, partly because he is out there. But the difference now is that the league is talking to the players. That's one of the differences. They should have done this some time ago while they were still working out the different scenarios. We know that they have 2 or 3 different types of scenarios. One is a bubble, I believe, at the start. But I think more often what you're looking at, particularly because you can very much do it in the East, is you can go back and forth between, especially if they have Ontario on side, which they're really, really working on. And I'm assuming they're working on a little money from them too. It's an outdoor game where you could put either 0 people or 1 person or whatever, maybe 1,000 into their stadium, and still the outdoor part of it is a lot more different than the inside. And of course, it's the National Hockey League model. They have the kind of money, but ethically and on principle, venues, particularly Alberta and Ontario, which have 5 of the 9 CFL teams when you add them up, have NHL teams too, have 4 NHL teams. So they can't make an argue against it theoretically. And we do know that Lynn McLeod in Ontario is working behind the scenes with them. I talked to, just, it wasn't to do with this, but I happened to be talking to another couple of other league people yesterday, and they're both very, very committed from the inside. You can't do anything if we go to the 3rd and 4th wave and it's a different type of virus and it just takes everything out. And that's not anybody in the CFL's part. And the other difference is, and they're presenting this to the players, is from last year, 9 owners want to play, and most of them have the same idea now, even though some of them are doing it with their tongue in their cheek, have the same idea what the priorities look like. This kind of schedule, this kind of schedule, this kind of schedule. Last year it was insane. Even the people that agreed of the 6 that agreed that they wanted to play, they had 6 different scenarios that it had to be played.
Your 1,000-person in the stands model, we're going to call that the Toronto Argonauts regular model.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, it costs you $1,000 to sit there. So.
But no, look, this is all great, and I applaud Randy Ambrosie for being visible, because we've called for that many, many times. So good for him for being out there and saying something, even though what he's saying, as you've all said, is not really saying much, just saying something, just being visible. That's good. I mean, it would be better if it was more specific, but I don't think they can be. But I really believe that there's not even a point other than the visual side of being out there until you have government money from somewhere, because I don't see how they could possibly do it without government support. So I'm sure they're working on it. I'm sure they're trying to figure out how to get it, but I see no possible way, Steve. I mean, you talk about the NHL model, but the NHL has a TV deal that can at least cover some of their losses, or it's big enough. I don't see any way the CFL can make this happen without government money, barring.
And I've said that, I don't know if I was sitting in this square or another square, but I've said that many, many times before. Yeah. The money is, there's no way they're proceeding on some of this without knowing that there's a really good chance to get
that should be number one. That should be point number one that he's making. We're working on getting some help, some funding to make this thing viable.
I'm not so sure that's a good visual. I think they'll
get
it, but I don't think that's
the only way it's going to work, though. That's the only way it's going to work. I mean,
sure it is.
The NFL proved the NFL proved it can be done in terms of, testing and playing and having some fans in the stands in some venues. But as we know, the NFL is a monolith onto its own, and it has, gazillion dollars in its treasure chest. The CFL does not. It needs that government. It needs some kind of support, whether it's corporate or government, because you're going to have an X amount of people in the stands. And right now, let's face it, teams that were basically selling out were breaking even or doing a little bit better, or, just a little bit in the red, with a fraction of the fans in the stands. Concession stands being somewhat restrictive, so you're probably not going to get, that kind of, elevated revenue there. Added, the added cost of testing. This is going to be a pricey venture, so they need that external funding to come in.
Well, it will. I think they'll get it. I don't think that they're going to broadcast it, though. Like if we're talking visuals at the start, I don't think you're going to broadcast that. You're 100% right. Whether it's a forgivable loan or whatever it is, I think they're going to get it, or piece together that, hey, we'll give you the vaccinations or something like that, which would be a tough sell too. But
Steve, you got to give the vaccinations. Bobby, you jump in, but you got to give the vaccinations not just to the players. To make this work, you have to give the vaccinations to all the fans. That's the big issue. That's the big
well,
issue.
that will come. That's the other thing that people inside the league told me this week. And they've been telling us inside, just in private conversations for some time, they really are counting on the vaccinations. And when it started to slow up, I think that scared everybody. It scared everybody in regular society.
No, the vaccination is not. I mean, and I'm going to be
immunity. No,
here. We're looking at Labor Day at the very least that we could say that. I know, and I'm being optimistic, Scott. That 75% of the population in this country will be double vaccinated, right? And that's optimistic, right? And this league, and I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that this league will play without fans in the stands. It cannot happen.
I think they'll start with it.
I can't envision, even if the league gets a little pocket change to ride on. They need fans in the stands. So when do we get in any sport, CFL, NFL, NBA, when are we going to be able to get fans in the stands? I'm not seeing that, sadly, until 2022. So my optimism level is dropping.
Let me throw one other thing out there, which is also probably a bit of a concern, and that is with the fans. Let's say, because we've heard, and Randy Ambrosie has said, we may have to adjust the schedule a little bit. Let's say it's Labor Day. Let's say Labor Day is optimistic. Let's say it's October. We're going to say we're going to get 6 games in. It's all we can get. And we're blue sky here. I don't know, but we're throwing this out. Let's say we can get 6 games in starting in October and lead into a Grey Cup. You draw a lot of fans in the summer when the weather is nice. Can the CFL get fans to come out if you start in October, considering the NFL will now be on TV and will be in direct competition with you? The challenges, my point is, the challenges become more and more the longer you have to adjust and put this thing off. And there will be people who will be dying to go back and see it, of course. But it becomes harder.
A lot in a lot of places, except for Toronto, maybe BC.
Yeah, it becomes harder though.
And
it becomes a bigger challenge.
Fans will come out, especially if it's only 20% or whatever the number is in terms of how many fans are going to be allowed.
Yeah, sure.
That 20% will be spoken for at a snap of a finger. But at the end of the day, those hardcore CFL fans, there's going to be a thirst to go back to the stadium. I think the stumbling block may be whether governments are going to allow that, because as we know right now, those outdoor restrictions are still in place.
What do you think? Will the CFL have a season? Randy Ambrosie says yes. He doesn't promise what kind of season, but he says they will be on the field in 2021. Are you believing it? We've talked about this before, but now you've got the commissioner validating that view. Comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Also, subscribe down below so you can keep up with these home games videos when they come out. Love talking to you. Love joining with you. We'll talk to you soon.